Hey guys, we're back to phase 5 of the Whitetail Rut. This is part 2. So pay attention now. This part 2 is kind of interesting. Around here in Minnesota, about the 22nd, 23rd, 24th of December, all our whitetails migrate to their wintering areas. Now, people like to call wintering areas winter deer yards, but I prefer to call them wintering areas because I think they're more than just a yard where whitetails are locked by deep snow in the wintertime. But all of a sudden, I've been out there bow hunting in late December in places where there's always been lots of deer, and you go out there and there's all kinds of fresh deer tracks all over the place, and other signs, fresh droppings and urine. All the trails are all well used in the snow, and think, man, this is going to really be something. You can sit there for the whole next week and never see a deer. They've all gone. The next time you get a little snow, all those tracks are covered, all those deer signs are covered, and they're not renewed. There's no fresh tracks here anymore. And the reason being, all the deer have made their annual migration to a wintering area. Now, wintering areas are usually the same for different populations of deer throughout the area. The whitetails where I live will travel about 6 miles to their wintering area, which is pretty close to a big lake, long lake, whose shorelines are covered with white cedars. And those whitetails love to eat white cedars in the wintertime, the greenery of white cedars, and it has enough food value to it. They can live on white cedars alone all winter long. Where I used to hunt when I was young, our woods was full of white cedars, and that venison that came from deer that were living on white cedars wasn't all that tasty. Where we hunt now, there's no white cedars, and our deer eat a lot of red oak acorns in the fall, early winter, and their venison is much better, much better. But at any rate, they migrate. Some deer will migrate 30 miles to get to their wintering area. Now, a wintering area becomes a wintering area because it provides good protection from winter weather, from cold winds, frigid winds, and snow falling during stormy weather. It gives deer good protection. And the area has lots of natural food around it. Like red osiers, like where we live, that's a favorite winter food, or red bark dogwoods, another name for them, or mountain maples, or black ash saplings, moose willows, quite a few woody shrubs that they like to eat the tender tips of branches from in winter. Live just fine on those all winter long. And leaves, retain leaves on red oaks. Red oaks hold their leaves all winter, and the whitetails eat those like candy when they can get to them. So there's lots of foods out there for them to eat. And they'll dig for grasses even sometimes when they feel like it. But at any rate, lots of food there. And some of our wintering areas, up in the area I hunt, one area, is large. And usually there's 500-600 deer living in that area in the wintertime. When I say large, it's about 20 miles long and probably about 5-6 miles wide, and hugs the north shore of Lake Superior in one area. A lot of wintering areas will be very small, maybe support only a couple dozen deer in the wintertime, but most of them are somewhere in between. We'll see 30, 60, maybe 100, 120 in one wintering area. But anyway, that's where they go. So a couple of things have happened here. The biggest bucks have lost their antlers, and the deer have migrated to wintering areas, and weather. Boy, by the time you get into late December, you're looking at pretty brutal weather. And I've been out there in that time of the year where the wind was blowing, and it was one morning it was 27 below zero when I was out there. And I was a pretty miserable guy. After a couple hours, I had to go to a little ravine a little ways away and build a big bonfire to get warmed up and then go back. But it's a pretty brutal time. But at the same time, you can get some of the best opportunities of the year during December when weather is like that. if you know what to look for, what to listen for as far as weather forecast. Let me tell you about that right now, while it's on my mind. In northern states, when you get, a spell of cold weather, really cold, like in December even, or November, in November during our regular gun hunting season, let's say 6 below, 10 below, 12 below, that kind of weather, night after night, for several days. Generally what happens, we don't see many deer during the day during those kind of, especially if it's windy, in that kind of weather, because it's just too darn cold for the whitetails. They want to stay in their beds, and now they've prepared for this during the previous fall. Whitetails gorge themselves on all kinds of food in order to create fat stores for the winter. The rear end of our deer, under the skin of their, we'll see slabs of fat 3-4 inches deep on these deer. Now, that fat that they're able to store in preparation for winter is good for about 30 days without food. So if it's really cold in the morning, and say the sap in trees is expanding and causing trees to pop, boy, there's going to be no deer moving when there's that kind of weather. Or if it's windy and really well below zero, they aren't going to be moving. They're going to stay in their beds and live in those fat stores on those particular days. Now, what happens is after you've had usually it's like that, 3 days or more of really cold weather, and up where we hunt, it gets to be 45 below zero sometimes for up to 20 days. But anyway, there's been a spell of real cold weather. After you've had that, the first day that a thaw or near thaw with a light wind is forecast, like I say, winds will be light, calm to light, or 5 miles an hour, something like that. It doesn't matter if it's sunny or cloudy, but a thaw or near thaw, when I say near thaw, it might be 29 degrees. And if it's sunny at 29, snow and tree branches will be dripping, it'll be thawing. And by a day like that, when that happens, during that first day, that first thaw or near thaw after all that cold weather, every deer in the woods, every single one of them will be on the move, feeding for an hour to two, sometime between the hours of 11 a.m. and 2 in the afternoon, midday. A midday feeding cycle will occur. And I'll tell you something, that every time we had that happen, let's say, well, I don't remember how many years ago, about 3 years ago, 4 years ago, we had some really cold weather, 12 below stuff with wind. And everybody was in camp early that one morning, and because they were all froze from being out in tree stands or out in ground level stands in the morning. We get out there before first light. And by 10 o'clock, everybody was in camp, and we were all sitting around there in the big tent. That's always warm, no matter how cold it is outside. Good fire going in the wood stove. And at any rate, we were all sitting around there, and I noticed, gee, it's really quiet. The wind had died, and it was sunny. And then I heard some dripping on one of the eaves of the tent. And I went outside and I checked, and sure enough, it was 32 degrees, and water was dripping off the tent roof. And I went back in the tent and said, hey, you guys, get right back out in the woods right now. Don't waste any time. One of the best times there is to hunt. It's going to happen any minute. We've got to get out there quick right now. So we all just got our clothes on, and boy, we took off. Well, within the next hour, we got 2 of the biggest bucks of the season. We all saw deer. I saw several does and young on the way to my stand site. And I got a quick glimpse of a nice book back in the brush, but he was looking at me, so he didn't mess around with me. He got the heck out of there. But at any rate, we, up to that point, in 9 days of hunting, that was the last day of our hunt. In 9 days of hunting, we had only taken 2 bucks, and usually we take 4 a season. I went out there, and an hour and a half, we had 2 more, and they were really nice ones, and we were done. I doubled our hunting. So what I'm telling you is, if you're a late season hunter, December. And you're sitting there at home in the evening and the weather forecast comes on and they say, tomorrow the winds will be light and variable and we're going to have a high of 33 degrees. No, just call in sick, do whatever you have, but get out in the woods and hunt, because during the middle of the day between 11 and 2, when other hunters that might be around are sitting in their cars or in camp having lunch and playing cribbage and that kind of thing, you get out in the woods and you're going to see deer, and quite possibly you'll have an opportunity to take a really nice buck, maybe the biggest in a lifetime. But that is a great time to be out there. And of course, hunt feeding areas. You know, that time of the year it's browse, you know, that woody browse, and that's where you want to be. And a great time to get bucks. And I tell you, that's magic. Midday feeding cycle triggered by that kind of weather is so great. And once you've experienced one, you'll never forget it. Okay, so anyway, so watch for that. So that's pretty much it for December hunting. You know, most time you get toward the end of the month, your chance of getting a really buck are made poor because gee, the big bucks don't even have antlers anymore, and then they migrated to a winter area. And if you don't know where that is, it can be a problem. If you do know where it is, that's tough hunting. It's hard to get close to a winter area without all those deer, all those whitetail eyes, ears, and noses, which are really good at spotting motions, and ears that are really good at spotting sounds made by humans, and noses, of course, that are never mistaken when they get a whiff of you. You want to be downwind. Now, some of those feeding areas, they only feed in the feeding area. They don't get outside. There might be a lot of big trees or just thick patch of evergreens, big stand of evergreens, and give some good cover, and they do everything in there. It's kind of funny too, they kind of divide up when they're in the winter area. The does and their young will be feeding in one area, and all the big bucks, 2.5 years in age or older, will be bedding in bachelor groups in separate areas. But they pretty much feed together. But if the wintering area, if the deer in the wintering area are feeding outside of the area where they're getting the cover, like in farm areas, they might be feeding on crop residues, you know, hay and pastures, places like that. Well, then maybe it'll work, you know, especially at that time. I guess if I was going to hunt any in the winter area, I'd plan on being there in the afternoon rather than early morning. So I can get to a stand site close to where they're feeding outside the area where they're bedding before they start getting out there. Then you have a better chance, and then you could even put up a tree stand at that time or hunt at ground level with good cover. And that way maybe you'll get a chance. Deer coming out in the feeding area, and some might come close enough for bow hunting and or muzzle load or whatever. But in this case, you want to be on the outside of an area where whitetails are feeding outside the area where they bed in a winter area in the wintertime. Well, that's it. Come January 1st, there might be a doe or two in estrus in the area. That can happen. But other than that, that's the end of the whitetail rut. There won't be anything else related to breeding going on until the following year, about September 1st, when bucks shed velvet. So now you know all about the whitetail rut.